Commander Jiwoo Park stood at the window of her apartment, watching rain streak down the glass. The city of New Seoul glowed below, its lights blurred by the storm. Her coffee had gone cold on the table behind her. She hadn't moved for nearly 20 minutes, not since the message arrived. The holographic notification still hovered in the air above her desk. Official. Urgent. From the United Earth Government, the kind of message that changed lives. Her comm device chimed again. Fourth, call in the last hour. Probably Minji from the diplomatic office, wondering why she hadn't responded yet. Jiwoo sighed and finally turned away from the window. Accept call, she said. Minji's worried face appeared in the air. Commander Park, thank goodness. Did you receive the summons? I did. And? The council needs your answer. The concordate representatives are waiting. Jiwoo picked up her cold coffee and took a sip, grimacing at the taste. They're asking me to defend our entire species, Minji. To convince advanced alien civilizations that humans deserve a place among the stars. That's why they chose you. Your work on the Mars Peace Accords was entirely different. Those were human disputes. This is, Jiwoo gestured at the formal document floating before her. This is asking me to stand before beings who've been traveling between stars for thousands of years and convince them we're not dangerous children. The Galactic Concordate had made contact with Earth only 18 months ago, shortly after humans had successfully tested their first faster-than-light drive. The aliens had arrived in massive ships, representatives of 27 different species, all members of an interstellar alliance that governed most of the known galaxy. At first, people celebrated. Humanity wasn't alone. Then came the growing realization. The Concordate wasn't offering friendship. They were conducting an assessment. Minji's voice softened. Jiwoo, I know it's overwhelming. But the transport leaves in 6 hours and you need to be on it. Jiwoo closed her eyes. She thought of her family. Her father in the countryside. Her brother and his children. She thought of all the families across Earth, looking up at the stars with new understanding of how small they truly were. I'll be ready, she said finally. The diplomatic vessel Harmony waited at the orbital station, sleek and silver against Earth's blue curve. Jiwoo arrived with only a small bag. She wouldn't need much where she was going. Captain Taeho Kim met her at the airlock. He was younger than she expected, with kind eyes that contrasted with his formal uniform. Commander Park, welcome aboard. Your quarters are prepared. He hesitated. It's an honor to transport Earth's representative to Nexus Prime. Thank you, Captain, Jiwoo replied, following him through the ship's gleaming corridors. How long until we reach the jump point? 4 hours to the edge of the solar system. Then the Concordate's jump technology will activate. They've modified our ship for the journey. The statement hung between them. Earth hadn't mastered instantaneous space travel yet. The aliens had installed the technology on the human vessel without sharing how it worked. One of many reminders of the power imbalance between Earth and the Concordate. Jiwoo's quarters were small but comfortable. A viewport showed Earth growing smaller as they ascended to higher orbit. She placed her hand against the cool glass, saying a silent goodbye. Her personal device chimed. A message from Director Hyun of the Diplomatic Corps, containing the full briefing files on the tribunal. Jiwoo settled onto the bed and opened them. The Galactic Tribunal had been convened only 12 times in the Concordate's 10,000-year history. Each time to determine whether a new species would be granted access to interstellar space or confined to their home system. 3 species had failed their tribunals. Their fate was listed as development containment, a polite term for quarantine, enforced by Concordate monitoring stations around their systems. A knock at her door interrupted her reading. A young crew member stood outside with a meal tray. Commander, Captain Kim thought you might be hungry. Jiwoo realized she hadn't eaten since yesterday. Thank you. The crew member lingered. Is it true, Commander, that the aliens might not let us leave our solar system if you don't convince them? Jiwoo saw the fear in the young woman's eyes. That's what the tribunal will decide. But we've overcome challenges before. After the crew member left, Jiwoo returned to the files. She studied the known members of the Concordat. The logical Valerians, the ancient Mycerians, the collective intelligence of the Quartz Dominion, each had strengths humans could barely comprehend, technologies that seemed like magic, and each had voiced concerns about humanity. Hours passed as the harmony accelerated toward the edge of the solar system. Jiwoo was still reading when Captain Day, Kim's voice came over the intercom. "Commander Park, please come to the bridge. We're approaching the jump point." The bridge was a flurry of activity when she arrived. Through the main viewport, nothing but darkness and distant stars. "Are we ready?" she asked. Captain Kim nodded. "The Concordat device has activated. We're receiving coordinates from Nexus, Prime Station." A low hum filled the ship, building slowly. Lights flickered and dimmed. "Captain, power fluctuations across all systems," called out a worried technician. "Normal for jump preparation," Kim assured them, though his voice betrayed his own uncertainty. None of them had experienced this before. The humming grew louder. Jiwoo gripped a railing as the ship began to vibrate. "Jump in 10 seconds, announced the navigation officer. Jiwoo looked at the faces around her. Humans about to make their first leap between stars. Not through their own achievement, but as passengers on alien technology. 3, 2, 1. Reality shifted. Jiwoo felt stretched, compressed, turned inside out. For an instant that seemed eternal, she existed everywhere and nowhere. Then it was over. The ship stabilized. Through the viewport, unfamiliar stars shone. And dominating the view, a massive structure like nothing human eyes had seen before. Nexus Prime, the heart of the Concordat, a space station the size of a small moon, glowing with power, surrounded by thousands of ships from across the galaxy. "We've arrived," Captain Kim whispered, awe in his voice. Jiwoo's device chimed with an incoming transmission. Text only, in perfect standard English, "Human vessel harmony. Proceed to docking bay 7842. Tribunal preparations commence in 6 hours. Representative Park will be escorted to orientation." As the ship moved toward the station, a small shuttle detached from the massive structure and approached them. Jiwoo received another message. "Representative Park, I am Coordinator Eka of the Navi. I will serve as your guide during the tribunal process. Prepare for immediate transfer." Jiwoo looked back at Captain Kim. "It seems my escort has arrived." "Good luck, Commander," he said softly. "We'll be watching from here. The whole Earth will be watching." Jiwoo nodded, feeling the weight of 7 billion lives on her shoulders. In a few hours, she would stand before the most powerful beings in the galaxy and make the case for humanity's future among the stars. The fate of her species would depend on her words. The Nexus Prime station hummed with strange energies that Jiwoo could feel through the soles of her boots. Her guide, Eka of the Navi, led her through corridors that seemed to shift and change. The small gray-skinned alien moved with quick steps, glancing back occasionally to ensure Jiwoo kept pace. "The tribunal chamber is at the heart of the station," Eka explained. "Few outsiders have seen it." Jiwoo tried to focus on memorizing their path, but the station's architecture defied human logic. Passages curved impossibly. Gravity shifted subtly between sections. Light sources had no visible origin. "How many species live on this station?" she asked, noticing the diverse beings. They passed. Some resembled animals from Earth, upright felines, insectoid creatures, beings like walking plants. Others defied categorization entirely. "Representatives from all 27 Concordat members maintain delegations here," Eka replied. "Plus, diplomatic missions from 43 non-member species. You humans are the newest arrivals." They stopped before a massive door that appeared to be made of flowing liquid metal. Eka placed a 6-fingered hand against it and the surface rippled. "The tribunal will begin shortly. I must warn you, the prosecution is led by Ambassador Malk of the Valerians. He has argued against 5 species in previous tribunals. 3 were contained." Jiwoo swallowed hard. "What should I expect? They will attempt to provoke an emotional response, to prove humans are ruled by feelings rather than logic." Ekka's large eyes blinked slowly. And remember, everything you say reflects on your entire species. The liquid metal door parted, revealing the vast chamber beyond. Jiwoo stepped inside and tried not to gasp. The tribunal chamber was a perfect circle, hundreds of meters across. Tiered seating rose in concentric rings, filled with beings of countless forms. At the center was a platform of white material that glowed with soft light. Facing it was a raised dais where 7 figures sat, the High Arbiters, representatives of the oldest concordate species. "Approach the speaking platform, human," came a voice in Jiwoo's mind. One of the High Arbiters, a being with translucent skin that revealed shifting colors beneath, had spoken without sound. Jiwoo walked forward, conscious of thousands of alien eyes watching her every move. The platform hummed beneath her feet as she stepped onto it. "This tribunal is now in session," announced another arbiter, this one resembling a tall, willowy figure composed of crystalline segments. "The matter, whether species designation human, planet of origin Earth, shall be permitted interstellar travel rights or placed under development containment. Ambassador Malk will present the case for restriction." From an entrance opposite Jiwoo's, a figure emerged. The Valerian stood over 2 meters tall with metallic blue skin and 4 arms. No visible eyes, just smooth skin where they should be, yet Jiwoo felt its attention fixed on her. "Esteemed arbiters, representatives of the Concordat," Malk began, voice resonating perfectly through the chamber. "I present evidence that humans are unsuited for participation in the greater galactic community at this time." A holographic display appeared above the chamber, showing Earth from space. The image zoomed in, revealing cities, then conflicts, scenes of war, protest, environmental destruction. Since our observation probes began monitoring Earth 3 centuries ago, humans have engaged in 112 armed conflicts, Malk stated. They have driven thousands of their own planet's species to extinction. They have altered their climate to dangerous levels before taking corrective action. The images shifted rapidly. Tanks rolling through cities, forests burning, oceans filled with plastic waste. Even their entertainment celebrates violence, Malk continued as the display showed action movies, violent video games, news broadcasts of conflicts. They simulate warfare for pleasure. Jiwoo flinched. Presented this way, humanity did seem barbaric. But this was a selective view, ignoring context and progress. "Most concerning," Malk said, voice dropping to a more ominous tone, "is their biological predisposition to emotional rather than rational decision-making." New images appeared, brain scans, genetic sequences, behavioral studies. Human neurochemistry reveals a species driven by fear, aggression, and tribal loyalty. Their history demonstrates an inability to maintain stable global governance for even a single century. The current United Earth government is barely 40 years old, a political infant by Concordat standards. Malk moved closer to Jiwoo's platform, all 4 arms extended in a gesture that somehow conveyed accusation. "I submit that allowing such a species access to faster-than-light technology is an unacceptable risk. Their pattern of development shows clear signs of the Karvik trajectory." A murmur ran through the chamber. Jiwoo didn't know what the Karvik trajectory was, but the reaction told her it wasn't good. "For evidence, I call forth the predictive models." 3 floating orbs appeared, each pulsing with different colored light. They hovered above the chamber center, between Jiwoo and Malk. "The Concordat's prediction engines have analyzed all available data on human development," Malk explained. "They have run 10 million simulations of possible human expansion scenarios. The orbs projected a complex branching visualization, possible futures stemming from humanity's entrance into interstellar space. In 78.3% of scenarios, human expansion leads to significant conflict within 50 standard years," Malk stated. In 42.9%, this conflict escalates to interspecies war. In 17.4%, the conflict threatens Concordat stability itself. The visualization highlighted these negative outcomes in red, making them glow ominously above the chamber. "The prediction engines have spoken," Malk concluded. "Humanity represents an unacceptable risk. for the safety of all concordate species. I urge this tribunal to place Earth under development containment until humans demonstrate sufficient evolutionary advancement to overcome their aggressive tendencies." The chamber fell silent as Malk stepped back. Jiwoo felt cold sweat on her neck. The case against humanity seemed overwhelming when presented this way. One of the High Arbiters, a being composed of what appeared to be constantly shifting mist within a containment field, addressed her directly. "Representative Park, you will have opportunity to present defense after the full prosecution concludes. Prepare yourself." Malk wasn't finished. The Valerian gestured, and a new being entered the chamber, tall, thin, with skin like polished obsidian. "I call witness Sen of the Messarians, who has personally observed human behavior." The obsidian being glided to a smaller platform near Malk. "I served as cultural observer on Earth for 20 of their years." Sen's voice was deep and melodious. "I witnessed 16 armed conflicts, 4 attempted genocide events, and countless smaller aggressions. Even in their most peaceful nations, humans maintain massive arsenals capable of planetary destruction." "And their reaction to concordate contact?" Malk prompted. "Fear, suspicion, immediate military preparation," Sen replied. "Their first response was to activate defense systems and prepare for possible conflict, before any aggressive action on our part." Jiwoo wanted to object. Of course, humans were cautious when giant alien ships suddenly appeared, but she remained silent, knowing her turn would come. As Malk continued presenting witnesses and evidence, Jiwoo noticed something curious. Not all representatives seemed convinced. A delegation of small, furry beings in one section were passing notes. A large entity that resembled a collection of transparent bubbles appeared to be arguing quietly with its neighbors. Maybe not everyone in the Concordate shared Malk's view of humanity. The prosecution continued for hours. Jiwoo stood silently, absorbing every accusation, looking for weaknesses in the arguments. Occasionally, she noticed Eka in the lower tier, taking careful notes. Finally, Malk concluded. "The evidence is clear. Humanity is not ready for the stars. For their own safety and ours, they must remain contained until they evolve beyond their violent nature." The Misty Arbiter spoke again. "The prosecution has concluded. This tribunal will recess for one cycle. Representative Park will present humanity's defense when we reconvene." As the chamber began to empty, Jiwoo remained on the platform, mind racing. How could she possibly counter such a comprehensive case against her species? The fate of humanity's future among the stars now rested on her response. Jiwoo's temporary quarters aboard Nexus Prime were small but comfortable, though clearly designed for beings with different proportions than humans. The bed curved oddly, and the lighting had a bluish tint that made her eyes ache after hours of reviewing the prosecution's evidence. Her mind kept returning to the prediction engine's simulations. Nearly 80% chance of conflict if humans expanded beyond their solar system? The numbers seemed impossibly high, yet the Concordate treated these predictions as fact. A soft chime indicated someone at her door. When it slid open, Eka stood there glancing nervously down the corridor. "May I enter?" the gray-skinned Navi asked. "Quickly, please." Jiwoo stepped aside, and Eka hurried in. The door closed with a soft hiss. "We should not be seen speaking. Privately," Eka said. "The Valerians have surveillance throughout the diplomatic quarters." "Why the secrecy?" Jiwoo asked. "Aren't you my official guide?" Eka placed a small disc on the table. It hummed quietly, emitting a field of soft pink light that enveloped them. "Privacy field," Eka explained. "Now we can speak freely. Listen carefully, Representative Park. The tribunal is not as it appears." Jiwoo sat down across from the alien. Up close, she noticed fine patterns on Eka's gray skin, like delicate circuits running beneath the surface. "The Concordate presents itself as unified," Eka continued, "but there are deep divisions. Ions among the member species. The Valerians, Messarians, and Quartz Dominion have controlled policy for millennia. They value order and predictability above all else. And you don't agree with them? Many smaller species like mine have different values. We see the Concordat growing stagnant, resistant to new ideas. Eka leaned forward. Do you know how long it's been since a major technological breakthrough occurred within the Concordat? Over 800 years, Jiwoo frowned. But your technology is so advanced. Advanced, yes, but not advancing. The dominant powers fear change. They've created systems that maintain stability at the cost of growth. Eka's large eyes blinked, rapidly. Then we discovered Earth. From a hidden pocket, Eka produced a small crystal and placed it on the table. It glowed with inner light. The Na'vi have been watching your planet longer than the official Concordat surveillance. We found Earth nearly 5 centuries ago, but kept our discovery secret. Why? Because we saw something remarkable. Humans progress differently than Concordat species. Where we advance methodically over centuries, you make intuitive leaps. You fail often, but learn rapidly from failures. Your chaotic approach produces innovations we would never discover. The crystal projected images, human history, but not the wars and conflicts Malk had shown. Instead, it displayed scientific breakthroughs, artistic achievements, moments of cooperation and ingenuity. In 300 years, you went from primitive combustion engines to rudimentary faster-than-light travel, Eka said. The Valerians took 2,000 years to make the same technological journey. Jiwoo watched as the images continued. Earth's recovery from environmental damage, the formation of the United Earth government after decades of division. Then why is Malk so determined to contain us? Because you represent a threat to the established order. The Valerians and their allies fear what they cannot predict. And humans are inherently unpredictable to them. Eka deactivated the crystal. But there's more. The prediction engines are not infallible. This caught Jiwoo's attention. The simulations showing conflict are based on flawed assumptions. The engines were designed by the Valerians. They interpret all data through a Valerian mindset, which fundamentally misunderstands emotional species. Eka stood and paced the small room. To Valerians, emotions are primitive, evolutionary remnants to be suppressed. They cannot comprehend that emotions might be valuable, that empathy drives cooperation, that passion fuels innovation. So the predictions are wrong. Not wrong, but incomplete. They calculate what would happen if humans behaved like emotionally unstable Valerians. But you aren't Valerians. Hope flickered in Jiwoo's chest. If I can demonstrate that, you need more than arguments. You need evidence that counters their models. Eka held up the crystal again. This contains 3 centuries of Na'vi observations of Earth, showing patterns the official surveillance missed. It also contains information about the tribunal itself, including past deliberations never made public. Jiwoo hesitated before taking the crystal. Why are you helping me? What do the Na'vi gain if humans join the Concordat? Eka's expression changed, the skin around their eyes crinkling in what might have been a smile. My species believes in diversity as strength. The Concordat was founded on that principle, but has forgotten it. With humans among the stars, new ideas would flow. And perhaps, Eka paused, perhaps the balance of power might shift, giving smaller voices like ours more influence. A political play then, not purely altruistic, but Jiwoo understood pragmatic alliances. There are others who share your view? 17 species have formed a coalition supporting human admission. We cannot speak openly, but watch the chamber. Tomorrow, you'll see signs of support. Eka retrieved the privacy field generator. I must go before my absence is noticed. Study the crystal tonight. It interfaces with thought. Simply hold it and focus your questions. At the door, Eka paused. One more thing. Ambassador Malk has never lost a containment case. He will not fight fairly if he senses defeat. After Eka left, Jiwoo sat holding the crystal, feeling its subtle warmth against her palm. She closed her eyes and focused her thoughts. Images and information flooded her mind. Centuries of secret observation of Earth by the Na'vi. She saw human conflicts, yes, but also their resolutions. She saw how cooperation emerged from competition. How Earth's nations, once bitterly divided, gradually built systems of global governance. She learned about previous tribunals, how the three contained species had all shared certain characteristics. They were hierarchical, expansionist, and slow to adapt. Nothing like humans. Most importantly, she discovered the flaws in the prediction engines. The simulations failed to account for human creativity, for their ability to form connections across differences, for their capacity to change. Hours passed as Jiwoo absorbed the information. When she finally set the crystal down, dawn light was filtering through her viewport. She hadn't slept, but her mind was clearer than it had been since arriving. She understood now. The tribunal wasn't just about humanity's readiness for interstellar travel. It represented a pivotal moment for the Concordat itself, a test of whether the ancient alliance would embrace change or continue its slow decline into stagnation. As she prepared for the day's proceedings, Jiwoo received a message on her communication device. It contained only a symbol, unfamiliar but somehow resonant. Below it, a list of 17 names, species she recognized from the tribunal chamber, her allies. 17 voices ready to support humanity if she could make a compelling case. With new determination, Jiwoo tucked the crystal safely away and headed toward the chamber. The prosecution had painted humans as dangerous and unpredictable. Today she would show that those same qualities, reframed as adaptability and innovation, were exactly what the Concordat needed. As she walked the shifting corridors of Nexus Prime, she noticed small gestures from passing aliens, slight nods, subtle hand signals. Word had spread. The smaller species were watching, hoping she would succeed not just for humanity's sake, but for their own. The weight on her shoulders felt heavier, but her step was lighter. She was no longer alone in this fight. The tribunal chamber seemed different to Jiwoo as she entered for the second day of proceedings. Perhaps it was her new knowledge, or perhaps it was the subtle glances from various delegates, small nods, quick hand gestures, eyes that lingered a moment too long, her allies, making themselves known. She approached the central platform with steady steps. The 7 high arbiters watched from their elevated positions, their faces unreadable. "Representative Park of Earth," announced the crystalline arbiter, "you may now present humanity's defense against the containment recommendation." Jiwoo took a deep breath and looked up at the gathered representatives of 27 spacefaring civilizations. Somewhere among them sat Captain Kim and the crew of the Harmony, the only other humans in the vast chamber. "Esteemed arbiters, members of the Concordat," she began. "Yesterday we heard a compelling case about why humans are dangerous. Today I will not deny our flaws. Instead, I will show you why those very qualities you fear are exactly what the Concordat needs." A murmur rippled through the chamber. Ambassador Malk's smooth face turned toward her, expressionless yet somehow radiating disapproval. "First, let us address the prediction engines." Jiwoo activated a small device Eka had provided. Above the chamber, a new holographic display appeared, challenging the one from yesterday. These models assume that human behavior follows the same patterns as other species. But we don't. The display showed human history as a series of branching paths, with unexpected turns and developments. Where most species follow linear progression, humans leap forward through intuitive connections. We call it creativity. Where your models see chaos, we see possibility. She displayed examples. The theory of relativity developed by a patent clerk, penicillin discovered by accident, the internet evolving from military technology to global communication network. The prediction engines cannot account for these leaps because they're programmed to see order, not creativity. One of the high arbiters, the misty being, shifted slightly. "You claim the engines are flawed? They have proven reliable for millennia." "For predicting traditional species, yes," Jiwoo acknowledged. "But humans represent something different. The engines predict we will cause conflict because they cannot predict what we will actually do." Malk rose from his seat. "The human questions our most sacred technology without evidence. This proves their arrogance." "I offer evidence now," Jiwoo replied calmly. She activated another hologram, showing Earth's rapid technological development. From first flight to space travel in less than a century, from basic computers to artificial intelligence in decades. The engines predicted Earth would need 300 more years to achieve faster-than-light travel. We did it in 50. The models didn't account for human collaboration and innovation. She noticed several delegates leaning forward with interest. A ripple of conversation spread through the chamber. Ambassador Malk showed you our conflicts, Jiwoo continued, but failed to show their resolutions. After centuries of warfare, Earth's nations built systems of cooperation, the United Nations, international law, and eventually the United Earth Government. New images appeared, peace treaties, international aid efforts, global environmental restoration projects. We don't deny our violent history. We learn from it. Each failure teaches us. Each conflict pushes us toward better solutions. Jiwoo walked to the edge of her platform, looking directly at the High Arbiters. Yes, humans are emotional. We feel deeply. But our emotions are not weaknesses. They're connections. Empathy lets us understand others unlike ourselves. Curiosity drives us to explore. Hope pushes us forward when logic says to surrender. She gestured to the chamber around them. Look at this magnificent station, this alliance of diverse species. Was it built through cold logic alone? Or did it require vision, courage, and hope, qualities that spring from emotion? The crystalline arbiter stirred. The Concordat was founded on principles of mutual benefit and rational cooperation. And those principles are noble, Jiwoo agreed. But I've studied your history. The early Concordat faced massive challenges, the Drift War, the collapse of the Third Arm, the energy crisis. You survived not through predictability, but through adaptation and innovation. She had their attention now. Even Malk seemed taken aback by her knowledge of Concordat history. Which brings me to my central argument. The Concordat has grown stable. Yes, but also stagnant. When was the last major technological breakthrough that originated within your alliance? Silence filled the chamber. Jiwoo let it stretch, knowing the answer. 812 years, she finally said. The quantum fold drive. Since then, you've refined existing technologies but created few new ones. Malk stood again. Stability is not stagnation. We have achieved harmony that has lasted millennia. Harmony is valuable, Jiwoo agreed. But life requires growth, and growth requires change. The universe doesn't stand still. New challenges will arise. Will the Concordat have new solutions? She activated the final display, a simulation based on the data from Ekka's crystal. It showed potential collaborations between humans and various Concordat species, with resulting innovations spreading throughout the alliance. Humans don't just create technology. We create connections, we bridge differences, we see patterns others miss. Yes, we bring unpredictability, but also adaptation, creativity, and resilience. Qualities the Concordat needs for its next 1,000 years. Jiwoo noticed delegates from the 17 allied species subtly nodding. She had given them the arguments they needed to support humanity openly. Ambassador Malk fears we will cause conflict. I propose instead that we will cause growth. Yes, growth can be uncomfortable. It challenges established ways, but without it, all systems eventually fail. She gestured toward the vast window showing the stars beyond the station. The universe is too vast for any one approach to be sufficient. Diversity of thought and method is not just beneficial, it's essential. By adding humanity to your alliance, you gain new perspectives, new solutions, new possibilities. Jiwoo stepped back to the center of her platform, standing tall. Judge us not by our worst moments, but by our capacity to learn from them. Not by our conflicts, but by our determination to resolve them. Not by our emotions, but by the connections they create. She looked at each High Arbiter in turn. The question before you isn't whether humans are perfect. We aren't. The question is whether the Concordat will embrace the next stage of its evolution, with humanity as partners in that journey. The chamber fell silent. Even Malk seemed momentarily speechless. Then, from a section where small furry beings sat, a delegate stood. The Tamari support human admission to the Concordat. Another rose, a being composed of crystalline structures. The Lumi recognized the potential benefits of human creativity. One by one, representatives from 15 more species stood, declaring support. Jiwoo recognized them from the list Eka had provided. Her allies had made themselves known. Malk's metallic blue skin darkened with what might have been anger. This appears coordinated, a political maneuver inappropriate for a tribunal. Proceeding, the misty arbiter raised a vaporous appendage. Whether coordinated or spontaneous, these voices must be heard. The tribunal will consider all perspectives during deliberation. Malk turned to Jiwoo, his featureless face somehow conveying intense scrutiny. You speak well, human, but words are easy. Actions define species, and your species' actions tell a different story than your eloquent defense. Then let our future actions prove my words true, Jiwoo replied simply. The crystalline arbiter rose. The defense has concluded. The tribunal will now retire for deliberation. Our decision will be announced when we reach consensus. As the chamber began to empty, Jiwoo caught Eka's eye across the room. The Na'vi gave the slightest nod, a gesture of approval, or perhaps hope. Humanity's case had been made. Now they could only wait for the verdict. The wait lasted 3 full cycles of Nexus, Prime's artificial day-night rhythm. Jiwoo spent the time in her quarters, alternating between anxious pacing and attempting to meditate, as she had learned during diplomatic training. Neither activity brought much peace. Captain Kim visited once, bringing food and news from the Harmony. The crew is proud of you, he told her. Your defense has been transmitted back to Earth. Billions watched it. And what do they think? Jiwoo asked. They're hopeful. Whatever happens, you spoke for humanity with dignity. He paused. Though many are preparing for the worst, containment protocols are being discussed, just in case. Jiwoo nodded grimly. If the tribunal ruled against Earth, humanity would be trapped in their solar system, watched by concordant monitoring stations perhaps for centuries. Their brief glimpse of the stars would be cut short. On the 3rd day, the summons finally came. A simple message on her communication device. The tribunal will reconvene in 1 standard hour. As Jiwoo prepared to leave her quarters, there was a soft knock. Eka stood outside, looking even more nervous than before. I shouldn't be here, the Na'vi said, slipping inside quickly. But I needed to warn you. The High Arbiters have been in deadlock. 3 support humanity, 3 oppose. The 7th Arbiter Suna of the Messarians will cast the deciding vote. So it all comes down to one person, Jiwoo murmured. Yes, and Arbiter Suna has historically sided with the Valerians on containment issues. Eka's large eyes were solemn. Prepare yourself for either outcome. When Jiwoo entered the tribunal chamber for the final time, she immediately sensed the tension. The delegates sat in rigid silence, divided into clear factions. Those who had spoken in support of humanity on one side, the traditional powers on the other. Ambassador Malk stood near the prosecution platform, his forearms folded in what appeared to be confidence. When he noticed Jiwoo, he gave a slight nod, not friendly but acknowledging a worthy opponent. Jiwoo took her place on the central platform. Captain Kim and the Harmony's crew sat in a special section reserved for the species under judgment. Their faces showed the strain of the past days. The 7 High Arbiters entered together, moving to their elevated positions with ceremonial slowness. Jiwoo studied their alien features, trying to guess which 3 had supported humanity, which 3 had opposed. Their expressions revealed nothing. The crystalline arbiter spoke first. This tribunal has deliberated on the matter of humanity's status within the galactic community. Each voice has been heard, each argument weighed. We now deliver our judgment. Hush fell over the chamber. Jiwoo felt her heart pounding. Arbiter Suna of the Messarians rose. The eldest of the 7, her obsidian skin gleamed in the chamber's light. She had been silent throughout the proceedings, observing but never questioning. I speak the decision of the tribunal, she said, her voice deep and resonant. The question before us is not simple. It is not merely whether humanity is ready for the stars, but whether the stars, which is to say we ourselves, are ready for humanity. The chamber remained utterly silent as she continued. We have heard compelling arguments from both sides. Ambassador Malk has rightly identified risks in human expansion. Representative Park has shown potential benefits. Both speak truth from different perspectives. Suna moved to the edge of the Arbiter's platform, looking down at Jiwoo directly. In my 5,000 years, I have witnessed 12 tribunals. Each species brings unique qualities, unique challenges, but rarely have I seen a species that generates such division among us. Jiwoo held her breath. Was this leading to rejection? This division itself is significant, Suna continued. It suggests humanity touches something fundamental in our collective consciousness, our tension between stability and growth, between security and possibility. The ancient arbiter raised her hands, and a holographic display appeared, different from the previous ones. It showed the Concordate's territory, a vast section of the galaxy, with Earth as a tiny point at its edge. The Concordate has maintained peace for millennia. This is our greatest achievement. But peace without growth becomes stagnation. Security without challenge becomes weakness. Her gaze swept the chamber. I have studied Earth's history not just through surveillance data, but through their art, their literature, their philosophy. I have watched how they struggle with the same questions that face us now, how to balance order with freedom, stability with progress, tradition with innovation. Suna lowered her hands, and the display disappeared. The tribunal's decision is this. Humanity will be granted limited interstellar rights, with monitoring and gradual expansion privileges. Earth will hold provisional membership in the Concordate, with full membership contingent on demonstrated compliance with Concordate principles over a period of 50 standard years. Jiwoo felt a wave of relief wash over her. Not full acceptance, but not containment either. A compromise. But Suna wasn't finished. Furthermore, Representative Park will serve as humanity's permanent ambassador to the Concordate during this probationary period. The responsibility for humanity's integration rests primarily with her. Jiwoo's relief gave way to shock. Permanent ambassador? That meant years, possibly decades away from Earth. This decision was not unanimous, Suna acknowledged. But it represents the tribunal's wisdom in balancing caution with opportunity. The Concordate will benefit from human innovation. Humans will benefit from Concordate guidance. Together, perhaps we will find a new path forward. With that, Suna sat down. The crystalline arbiter rose again. This tribunal is concluded. The containment recommendation is rejected. Provisional status approved. Preparations for implementation will begin immediately. The chamber erupted in sound. Delegates, conferring, arguing, some celebrating. Captain Kim and the Harmony's crew embraced each other, grinning with relief. Ambassador Malk approached Jiwoo as she stepped off the platform. You have won a significant victory, human, he said, his voice conveying neither anger nor pleasure. But remember, my concerns were not baseless. Prove them wrong in the decades to come. I will do my best, Jiwoo replied simply. Yes, Malk said. I believe you will. That is why I ultimately did not oppose Arbiter Suna's compromise. Before Jiwoo could respond to this surprising revelation, the Valerian turned and departed. As the chamber slowly emptied, Eka appeared at Jiwoo's side. Congratulations, Ambassador Park, the Navi said quietly, though I suspect you may have mixed feelings about your new position. Jiwoo nodded. I didn't expect to stay here permanently. Few things in life proceed exactly as expected, Eka replied, which is precisely the point you made in humanity's defense. As they walked together toward the exit, Eka spoke more softly. There is something you should know. This outcome was anticipated. What do you mean? The progressive factions within the Concordate have been planning for human admission for decades. We needed new voices, new ideas. But the traditional powers would never have agreed to it openly. Understanding dawned on Jiwoo. The tribunal was theater? A way to introduce humanity while allowing the conservatives to save face? Not entirely theater, Eka clarified. The containment threat was real, but certain influences were carefully arranged, information provided, minds prepared. Jiwoo stopped walking. Was I manipulated into this position? Guided, perhaps. But your defense was your own. Your assignment as permanent ambassador was Suna's idea alone. She sees something in you that mirrors her own nature, a balance of tradition and innovation. Captain Kim approached, interrupting their conversation. Commander, or should I say ambassador, we need to prepare the Harmony for return to Earth. You'll need to brief the UEG on the outcome. Jiwoo nodded. I'll join you shortly, Captain. After he left, she turned back to Eka. So what happens now? Now comes the real work, the Navi replied. Proving that the tribunal made the right decision. Showing that humans can be valuable members of the galactic community. And perhaps, over time, helping the Concordat remember its founding purpose. To unite diverse perspectives for the benefit of all. Jiwoo looked out a viewport at the countless ships surrounding Nexus Prime, each representing a different world, a different history. 50 years to prove ourselves, she said quietly. 50 years to change the course of the Concordat, Eka corrected. Starting today. As Jiwoo prepared to depart for Earth with the momentous news, she realized that the true challenge was just beginning. The stars were now within humanity's reach, and it was her responsibility to ensure they grasped them wisely. The end.